Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales, the place you find stories and fanfictions written and read to you by your host, me, Tai Tiger. Today, we're diving back into Power Rangers Universe 91, and we're joining the Power Rangers Cyberforce V2 team. Power Rangers Cyberforce V2 is actually a fanfiction of a fanfiction. The original Power Rangers Cyberforce is written by my Parabatai and one of my dear friends, Cosplay Dude 637, over on the Power Rangers Universe 19 podcast. Hence why this universe is 91, because it's a flip on the universe. In today's story, Mikhail from Universe 19 is still stranded here, and Mikhail's up to something. That's all I'm going to give you. If you want to find out what Mikhail's up to, you're just going to have to carry on listening. So let's dive in with Power Rangers Cyberforce V2. Chapter 12. Virus Rangers Recoded, Part 1. Ace, Timothy, and Daisy watch the monitors intensely, their stares glued to the screens, watching for any sign from Mikhail. They watched and waited for their chance to avenge Midori, the Sage Green Ranger, and take down her killer, the Red Cyberforce Ranger from Universe 19. 36 hours ago. Ace, Timothy, Daisy, Midori, and Mikhail all teleported into an abandoned warehouse, where they found Rose, stood there waiting for them. The second Virus Ranger stood there with a grin on her face. "Hello, power losers," Rose chuckled. "Shut up, man. Why'd you allow us to track you?" Ace barked. "I wanted my new lover to come find me," Rose said devilishly. Everyone looked at Timothy, who shrugged his shoulders and shook his head. Then Mikhail walked forward, walked over to Rose. He stood next to her, turned around and slowly faced the other Rangers. The four Rangers stood there, their mouths dropped open, and Rose started giggling like a high school little girl, and clapping like a clown. "Sorry, Rangers, what can I say? She's memorizing," Mikhail said, placing his arm around Rose. "He is such a hunk, and oh, so dreamy," Rose cooed. "What the hell, Mikhail? What are you doing? You're the Red Ranger," Daisy barked. "Red is the colour of love," Mikhail sneered. "Let's get the cheeky bastard," Midori growled. "Yeah," Ace nodded.
"Scan! DNA!"
Ace called out as he waved his hand over his morpher. His morpher started to glow silver.
"Cybercharge!"
Ace yelled as he slammed his hand on his morpher, and in a flash of silver light, Ace was morphed into the Silver Cyberforce Ranger.
"Scan! DNA!"
Daisy called out as she waved her hand over her morpher, and her morpher started to glow white.
"Cybercharge!"
Daisy yelled as she slammed her hand on her morpher, and in a flash of white light, she was morphed into the White Cyberforce Ranger. "Scan DNA!" Timothy called out as he waved his hand over his morpher, and his morpher started to glow orange. "Cybercharge!" he called out as he slammed his hand on his morpher, and in a flash of orange light, he was morphed into the Orange Cyberforce Ranger. "Scan DNA!" Midori called out as she waved her hand over her morpher started to glow sage green. "Cybercharge!" she called out as she slammed her hand on her morpher, and in a flash of sage green light, she morphed into the sage green Cyberforce Ranger.
"Scan DNA!"
Mikhail waves his hand over his morpher, and it begins to glow red.
"Cybercharge!"
Mikhail slams his hand onto his morpher, and he is transformed into the Red Cyber Ranger.
The Silver Ranger ran at the Red Ranger, who summoned his Cyber Blade and slashed down the Silver Ranger. The two shifted between strikes. "Please, do not beat the better leader," the Red Ranger growled. The White Ranger summoned her Cyber Deck, jumped up in the air, and rained down several cards on the Red Ranger. He managed to block the cards or dodge out of the way. Then he threw his sword, which flew up and hit the White Ranger. He then jumped up, caught his sword, and struck the White Ranger again several times before double kicking her back to the ground. Suddenly, the Cyber Shield flew at the Red Ranger and struck him. The shield bounced back and was caught by the Orange Ranger. The Red Ranger then landed and ran at the Orange Ranger. He slid across the floor, dodging a shield strike. Then he jumped up and kicked the Orange Ranger, making him stumble forward. Then the Sage Green Ranger landed. "I got a weapon, right?" she asked her communicator. "Yes, you do," Haley piped in. Good, she huffed. Then she pressed her weapon icon. Download! Cyber nunchucks! She called out. Then a set of nunchucks appeared in her hand. She ran at the Red Ranger and swung the nunchucks and hit the Red Ranger several times in an intense combo, before spin kicking the Red Ranger in the chest, making him stumble back. He found his footing quick, then dived forward and tackled the Sage Green Ranger, slashed her down the chest, then quickly swiftly moved behind her and hit the back of her legs, making her drop to her knees. Then he ran his finger down the blade of his sword, making it glow. He then swung his sword, slashing down the Sage Green Ranger. There was some electricity that rippled off the Sage Green Ranger's suit before she fell to the floor, and an explosion erupted, and after the smoke cleared, there was nothing left of the Sage Green Ranger. Midori! The trio all called out. The Rangers all grouped up and charged at the Red Ranger, now fueled with rage. He swung his sword in quick succession, and with 3 quick slashes he slashed down the other 3 Rangers. The 3 Rangers demorphed, now covered in bruises and marks. They slowly climbed to their feet, holding on to their weakened selves. The Red Ranger walked over to Rose. She jumped on him and wrapped her arms around his neck. And why didn't I have to morph? Rose flirted. Then Mikhail demorphed and Rose tried to kiss him, who stopped her. You get what you want after I get what I want, Mikhail growled. Then they teleported away. Ace, Timothy, and Daisy teleported home.
Hey listener, this is a not paid for product placement for the Zero to Hero podcast.
What do you
If
mean
you
not
definitely
paid?
like what you're listening to now, come on over to the Zero to Hero podcast.
Lights on. Just
Anywhere you want to be able to find your podcast
the
at,
trash bills.
like
due
Apple
next week.
Podcasts,
What the-
Spotify, Amazon Podcasts,
How the
and
hell
Google
am I gonna get
Podcasts,
my
which
God
still a little
poison
weird.
for the next 2 weeks? All
Come
the
on over
pre-orders are
and
starting
enjoy
to
yourself
drop.
and listen to Billy and myself bicker, argue, and,
Speak
well,
of the
fight
dog,
about a lot of
no
things,
goddamn
as we are
bathroom
the
for
bulk
the
and
next
skull
2
of
weeks.
podcasting.
How the hell am I
Good
going to
luck
get
out there,
money
and
for-
welcome back to the show.
In present time, Ace, Timothy, and Daisy watched the monitors with intense stares, watching for any sign from Mikhail. They watched for their chance to avenge Midori, the Sage Green Ranger, and take down her killer, the Red Cyberforce Ranger for Universe 19. Suddenly, Ace slammed his fist on the table and turned to Haley. Why aren't you annoyed? Ace barked. Haley pushed her glasses up her nose, then looked Ace square in the face. There's no point getting angry right now. I have work to do, and so do you. So let's get this done so no one else dies. We can mourn and we can cry, but later, Haley snapped, her eyes slightly filled with tears. Then she turned around, sat down, and carried on working. Suddenly, the alarm started ringing. There we go. Rose and Mikhail are at the docks, Haley told the trio. Then the trio all nodded and teleported away. They teleported in to see Mikhail and Rose dancing inside one of a amusement attraction. They walked in and Timothy pointed at the dancing duo. Yo, traitor! Timothy barked. Please, you're just jealous, lover boy. Mikhail grinned. He leaned in and took a deep breath, taking a smell of Rose's hair. Timothy growled, then he charged forward. He morphed and jumped up, summoning his cyber shield, and threw it at Mikhail. Mikhail pushed Rose, making her stumble back, then backflipped and swung his foot, kicking the shield back at the Orange Ranger, who caught it and landed. God damn it, Tim! Daisy barked. Then Daisy and Ace morphed and joined the Orange Ranger. Stay back. I don't want your pretty little face getting damaged. Mikhail sneered at Rose. Then he morphed and summoned his cyber blade. He ran at the trio and struck the Orange Ranger's shield. He pushed down, but the Orange Ranger managed to stand his ground. The Silver Ranger appeared behind the Red Ranger with his cyber hatchets in hand and struck the Red Ranger against his back with a double attack. The Red Ranger stood and suddenly got hit by a barrage of the cyber deck. Card strikes hitting him as they rained down on him. He stood and suddenly he got hit by a thrown cyber shield, making him fall on his back. The trio watched as the Red Ranger stood slowly. The Silver Ranger jumped forward and struck the Red Ranger. He slashed the Red Ranger several times, sparks flying off his suit. Then the White Ranger landed and kicked the Ranger in the stomach, then dropped low and swept her foot under the Ranger, knocking him off his feet. The Silver Ranger grabbed the Red Ranger and pulled him onto his feet. Then the Silver Ranger held him still as the Orange Ranger ran up, jumped high, slammed the rim of his shield into the Red Ranger's chest, sparks exploding off of him, and the Red Ranger dropped to his knees. "Do you yield?" the Orange Ranger barked. "I do," the Red Ranger muttered. "Stop. This seems to be easy. Mikhail is way more skilled than this," the Silver Ranger said. "Yes, I am. It's just a shame my fighting skills are outmatched by my acting skills," the Red Ranger chuckled. The trio looked at each other rather confused. "Mikhail, hurry up and beat them already," Rose chirped. "I'm afraid that ain't gonna happen," a familiar voice called out. Suddenly Midori landed behind Rose. Rose tried to throw an elbow, but Midori caught it, and she rammed her palm into Rose's back. Then she pulled out a small device and stabbed Rose in the neck with a needle point and pressed the flat white button on top of it. "Antivirus, upload," Midori called out. The trio all stood and watched in awe. The Red Ranger pulled himself away and stood up, and ripples of rainbow-coloured coding surged through Rose's entire body. She screamed out in pain and dropped to her knees. A huge amount of thick purple fog spewed from Rose's mouth and slowly evaporated in the atmosphere, disappearing from sight. Rose coughed and grunted in pain before she stood up and looked around rather confused. What's going on?" Rose asked. This time her voice and her entire body language had changed. "I think we're all a little confused," the White Ranger stated, looking over at Midori. "You guys can demorph now. Besides, I think we have some explaining to do." Midori grinned. All 4 Rangers demorphed and everyone grouped up. "Okay, so you're not dead?" Timothy asked, poking Midori's shoulder. "No, I never died. I'm sorry that we made you believe that, but we had a plan," Midori told them. "What plan?" Daisy asked. "It all started with a conversation between me and Haley," Mikhail stated. Brought to you by Onion Direct. We give you the Super Glue, a lip balm. Not for yourself, don't be a jerk and put it on yourself, give it to someone else. This lip balm is for the grandmother who talks about masturbation too much, your wife who keeps on gossiping, and that coworker who just always seems to have a question. Give it to them. They'll get shiny lips, of course, that's what lip balm does, but with the added efficiency of the Super Glue, they won't ever talk again. That is right, we promise no talking, shiny lips, and of course, warning, do not put it on yourself. Give it to others with the fantastic price of $9.99. Brought to you by Onion Direct. A few days ago, Mikhail and Haley were sat at the computer, and Haley was explaining how Dr. H managed to sabotage the Beast Morpher experiment, which was, if successful, would have cloned the Power Ranger powers into Derek, Rose, and Trixie, but was altered and they become the evil Virus Ranger trio. Shame there isn't an antivirus, huh? My brother has to do that to his PC because all the mods he does to his games, Mikhail muttered. Haley looked at Mikhail with wide eyes, a slight twinkle of determination shadowed her face. "What?" Mikhail asked. "An antivirus. I might better do something. Mikhail, you're a genius," Haley squealed as she bolted out of her chair, leaving Mikhail there. "I do keep telling people this, but nobody wants to believe me," Mikhail told the empty room. Everybody looked at Mikhail rather confused. "Okay, let me explain. So we came up with a plan. We needed to get close to one of the Rangers. Haley had not figured out a way to penetrate the suit just yet, and we all knew that if Ace or Timothy tried to fool the evil Rose, then 2 things would happen. 1, Rose would be rather doubtful, but 2, Daisy and whoever didn't go would be worried. So I offered to do it. And besides, the Virus Rangers don't know me. I haven't been here long. Your actions had to be spot on and be rather believable. So I didn't tell you the plan. You guys acted perfectly. So I was in the ranks of the Virus Rangers. I have been for the last couple of days. Dr. H wasn't there, but before Rose could give me the grand tour, I needed them to trust me. And I needed a chance to get Rose alone. Whilst Haley made the antivirus serum. So I air quote killed Midori. You guys not knowing also helped that to make more believable. With Midori so-called dead, Rose wouldn't be on the lookout for her. I put on my Newtman charm, and I made her believe I was going to destroy you. Well, last night I spent the entire time walking around the hideout, mapping it out and sending live video feeds to Haley. Then today, I put on the grand performance, allowing Rose to become astounded by me. Midori came in just at the right time with Haley's antivirus serum and struck Rose with it, Mikhail explained. Sorry guys, Haley's voice muttered over the communicator. Yeah, sorry, but we now have Rose, Midori grinned. Everyone then looked at Rose and everyone looked back at Mikhail and Midori. You almost had me caring about you, A said, punching Midori's arm. Suddenly, Rose started crying and everyone looked at her. I'm so sorry for all the evil things we've done, Rose sobbed. The team all gave her a hug, then their communicators started beeping. Don't need to beep in, Haley, Mikhail chuckled. I have one more secret. Bring Rose home and we can discuss things, Haley commanded. The team all looked rather confused, but then headed for the museum, and Rose dived on Haley. Hey, girl, Haley grinned. I'm so sorry, Rose sighed. Don't be stupid, Haley said. So what's going on, Haley? Ace asked. Well, whilst Mikhail was on his air-quote mission, I received a multiversal distress call from Universe 19. I've been talking to your Haley, Mikhail, Haley explained with a big grin. Oh, wow. Does that mean I can go home? Mikhail asked with a smile. Yeah, well, almost. I've been talking to your Haley for the last couple of days. We have come up with a logical reason on why these portals keep popping up everywhere in both universes. Long ago, the cyber realm was split into two halves, and it seems like it's trying to fix itself. So me and the other, me, have been building devices. If we both turn them on at the same time, it should stabilize the fluctuations. So the cyber realm can build itself back together peacefully, and none of our universes end up getting sucked into portals. But this also means we can utilize the ability to make portals to any force of the cyber realm, Haley told them. Like the Cyberforce Rangers in Universe 19, Mikhail cheered. Haley nodded. Then Mikhail looked at the Cyberforce Rangers that stood before them. Look, I got a mission to do first. But, yeah, Mikhail said. I want to help, Rose sighed. Your morpher is actually still active. You still have all your powers. I actually scanned you when you teleported in, Haley explained. Good, because I do not know what Dr. H is doing, but it's big, and you'll need all three of us, Rose muttered. Then let's do this, Ace smiled. Then the whole team got ready for the next part of the plan to revert Derek and Trixie back to normal. To be continued. And there you have it, guys. Part 1 of Virus Rangers turning back to good. It's an interesting story, I must admit, and having Mikhail around has been a lot of fun. Now, I do plead you to go listen to the recent chapters of Power Rangers Cyberforce on Power Rangers Universe 19 podcast by Cosplay Dude 637. This isn't just a one-sided story here. There is actually a lot of things in the works going off in both stories. So you might want to go check out the most recent chapter the Cosplay Dude uploaded. That being said, let's talk about the Three Ranger Bros. Myself and Cosplay Dude are two members of the Three Ranger Bros, and Cosplay Dude not only has Power Rangers Universe 19, but he also has Sailor E and Storytime, where he uploads more stories and uploads them onto podcast format. All found on where you can find your podcasts. There's also his YouTube channel, Nostalgia Time, which is exactly the same, but with more nostalgic storylines. Then we have Mark, our third member of the Three Ranger Bros. He has Nerds Through Comics, where he adapts comic books into audio dramas. You don't have to read the comic book, and uploads his own original stories. And as an association with us, he also uploads some of Cosplay Dudes and my own stories on there to help push the stories out. Then, of course, we have Zero to Hero, the Bulk and Skull of podcasting. Billy and Jim come back every Friday with amazing podcasts, rambling on about whatever they see fit, but a lot of the time they also mention things like Power Rangers and Gundam and all sorts of stuff. So you might want to go follow them as well. Of course, I have to shout If You Give Dad a Podcast. This is one of the newer members of the Zero to Hero community, and he's a supporter of the Tiger Tales channel, so I have to shout him out as well. Now, of course, you gotta go subscribe to the brother channel, Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, where I upload more storylines and fanfictions up there, but they're all in the first person perspective, so you might want to go subscribe to that too. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching, and of course, I shall see you guys really soon.